Thanks, Hugo. You can begin.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Hugo Nell, and it's my great pleasure to welcome all of you to the Rhodes University Pension Fund restructuring process. Today, the focus will be on our pensioners, and the idea here is to give you the opportunity to interact with the team, to obtain more information. We do know that you already know about the restructuring of the pension fund, which is happening at the moment. And there's an opportunity today to have presenters on the topic, some questions asked by yourself, and we can take it from there. So welcome, everyone. This is the Pensioner Town Hall, and we're now going to make a start. First up to the event, just to point out that the event was originally scheduled for the 30th of November. And unfortunately, there was news coming out the day before that large parts of Grahamstown would be without electricity on the day. So unfortunately, it was cancelled then. We do hope that you were not inconvenienced by that. But of course, the idea was to try and reach as many of our pensioners as possible, hence the postponement of the event. So we hope that you are all connected now, and we have the real show on for you today. All right, without further ado then, just in terms of the event itself, please note that your cameras and your microphones have been disabled for the webinar. you can then send through questions via the question and answer button on the toolbar, and these will be addressed at the end of our presentations. And of course, a recording of the webinar will be made available post the event, just in terms of how it's going to be organized. Okay, we have the agenda now, just to see what is going to happen. As we said, this is our town hall webinar for pensioners about the restructuring of the pension fund. And again, the idea is to make as much as possible information available to you at this stage. And of course, through the other mechanisms that have been made available by the project team. We're going to start with a welcome and the introduction of the facilitators and the speakers. The first topic, and we get back to that in a minute, is going to be on the background and the changes. And then, of course, very important would be your options as a pensioner of the fund, followed by the resources to help you make your decision going forward. And we're also going to touch on some frequently asked questions and answers. And all of that would then be wrapped up in the summary and the questions. Right, then to make some progress over the page, again, welcome to all of you. And it's now my privilege to also welcome our speakers and facilitators for today's webinar. First, top left, we have Dr. Sizwe Mabizela, the Rhodes University Vice-Chancellor. Welcome to Dr. Mabizela, and we're going to come back to Dr. Mabizela in a minute. Also up on the screen, Professor Gavin Keaton and myself. We are both in the economics department at Rhodes. We are both trustees of the pension fund, and we also serve on the project team for the restructuring of the fund. And then bottom right, with a warm smiling face, Derek Munton from Alexander Forbes, and we're going to rely on him to address many of the technical questions coming up. So welcome to all the presenters up here as we go forward. Well, colleagues and our pensioners, let's move on then. The first topic for presentation is dealing with the background to this whole process and, of course, the changes as they are happening at Rhodes at the moment. And to address us on that, we have Dr. Sizwe Mabizela, the Rhodes University Vice-Chancellor. Welcome again, Dr. Mabizela, and thank you very much for taking the time to participate in the webinar. And we now hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Nel. Good morning to you all, and thank you for making time to attend this very important town meeting. We all know that Rhodes University has two retirement schemes. The Rhodes University Pension Fund, which is a defined benefit scheme, and the Rhodes University Provident Fund, a defined contribution scheme. In 2018, actuarial analysis of the Rhodes University Pension Fund pointed to a significant risk that the fund placed on the university's balance sheet. Subsequent to that, an extensive exercise was undertaken whereby the trustees of the fund and the university reviewed the current benefit structure of the fund. Among other things considered in this exercise were, one, the trends and developments in the retirement benefits industry and the move away from defined benefit to defined contribution arrangements. Second, the need for the consolidation of the staff retirement fund arrangements at Rhodes. And third, the university's objectives to de-risk its balance sheet and support future financial sustainability of Rhodes University. So, after careful consideration, Council took a resolution that it was no longer practical to continue providing retirement benefits within the pension fund, other than those that had already been accrued on this basis. As pointed out earlier, the Rhodes University Defined Benefit Pension Fund places an ever-increasing open-ended financial obligation on the university's resources. You might want to know if the university will continue to be a sponsor to cover the financial soundness risk for members who decide to remain in the pension fund. Let me just make this point that trustees have the first obligation to look after the fund and use all levers available to them to ensure that the fund remains viable to meet the needs of those who decide to remain in it. The university may not be able to underwrite possible future funding shortfalls of the fund, depending upon the prevailing financial context of the university at that time. The pension fund will therefore have to operate on a self-sustaining or self-funding basis. The pension fund has established an expense reserve account in this regard. In the event that the fund finds itself in a deficit in the future, the trustees will be required to exercise the options available to them in terms of the legislation and in terms of the rules of the fund, prior to making any approach to the university for any possible assistance. This is an important transition that we are making, and we really hope that you will find all the answers to the questions that you may have regarding this exercise. Thank you very much, Professor Nell, and I'm looking forward to engagement. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mabizela. That was very informative. Our first topic up for today. To our pensioners, you may well have questions on the basis of this presentation. Please hold the thoughts for the moment, and you will have the opportunity at the end of the webinar to raise them, and we will try to answer. We move along, and I now hand over to Derek Munton, who is going to take you through the technical changes, first of all, for active members, and then again, secondly, our pensioners. Over to you, Derek.
Thank you, Professor Nell, and thank you, colleagues, for the time to present to you today. It certainly is a privilege to be able to engage with you on this important topic. So importantly, I think just to recap, we would like to share with the pensioners what the restructuring means for active members of the pension fund as well. So the trustees have decided to keep the defined benefit structure of the fund for active members for their service up until the 1st of April 2022. Then from 1 April 2022, all active members and the employer of the university will then join the Rhodes University Provident Fund. These members will have the choice of either leaving their defined benefit as at 1 April 2022 in the Rhodes University Pension Fund as a paid up defined benefit, or alternatively transferring that capital across to the Provident Fund, where after they will then be able to invest that money in accordance with their circumstances within the Provident Fund. Moving to the options that you have as a pension of the fund, let's look at those options available to you and what you need to consider. Right, with this change, the trustees are providing pensioners with an opportunity to voluntarily purchase their pension through another provider. And they've allocated quite a reasonable time period for pensioners to assess the position in order that they can make an informed decision. Importantly, you're only required to take any action should you wish to make use of this once-off option. If you wish to remain a pensioner of the Rhodes University Pension Fund with no change to your current pension, then you do not need to do anything. This option does not enable you to directly access your pension capital. This is not allowed in terms of the Income Tax Act. So your only option is to move your pension capital into an alternative annuity arrangement of your choice. Firstly, you'll need to register your interest in taking up this option with the fund. Note that registering your interest is not binding and does not mean that you'll have to uplift your pension capital. Rather, it is a mechanism for the fund to identify who might be interested in this option and accordingly who the fund should engage with further. Again, we stress that you do not need to return the option form if you do not want to take up this option. Having said that, the option is a once-off opportunity which the trustees may not, for various financial reasons, make available again into the future. It is only once the fund has this information that we will then engage with you as to the illustrative upliftment value that is the backing of your actuarial reserve value in the fund. The fund is unfortunately not able to just provide illustrative figures before then. So we do require, as a pensioner, you to complete the option form, giving your intent that you would like to investigate this option. Right, moving to the transfer process. Should you decide to transfer your pension capital, the Financial Sector Conduct Authority must approve the transfer first. The approval transaction is known as a Section 14 transfer in terms of the Pension Funds Act, and it's quite a complex process which can take some time before approval is obtained from the Financial Sector Conduct Authority. This could be anything from 6 months to 9 months. During this period, your pension will continue to be paid by the Rhodes University Pension Fund. The capital value that is eventually transferred to your selected annuity will be adjusted with pension payments made between 1 July 2021 up until the Section 14 approval date, plus investment growth on that capital during this period. Right, we've made resources available to yourselves through accredited financial planners and financial advisors that have insights as to the structure of the Rhodes University Pension Fund. As I indicated, these are accredited individual financial planners. You can contact Alexander Forbes on either the fund's dedicated share call line 0860 talk to AF or the following email address, consultwithalexanderforbes@aforbes.com. The accredited financial planners from Alexander Forbes will be proactively contacting pensioners to take them through what their available options are. Just to go through the names, many of you might be familiar with Roy Morgan. He's in fact the principal dedicated financial planning consultant to the Rhodes University Pension Fund. Next to him is Buntu Bam, then Greg Bradfield, Don Ridden, Brent Kops, Alushka Anderson, all of whom are supported by the regional head of this division, Rob Rayner, who's on the bottom right-hand corner. We would also like to encourage pensioners to access the official Rhodes University Pension Fund restructuring information site, which provides a wealth of information about the restructuring process, in addition to other useful financial planning information and circulars on that site. The site can be accessed on www.rupensionfund.co.za. And we do once again encourage pensioners to access the site and read the available information on this site. Just some further event information which pensioners can look forward to. On the 16th of February 2022, a retirement planning workshop will be held where we will look at the range of annuity options available to pensioners considering the uplift out of the fund. And remember that this is an individual decision, so there's no one size fits all. The decision whether to remain in the fund or uplift really depends on your own financial situation and your individual needs. I'll now hand back to the facilitator, Professor Nell.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you for your presentation, which was extremely informative. Everyone, as you can see, we are now dealing with the technical issues around the restructuring, and in particular, how individual pensioners would be affected by the change, and also the options available to you. So in order to make more information available, the next section is going to cover frequently asked questions and answers. And the person taking us through that will be Professor Gavin Keaton. Over to you, Gavin.
Thanks, Hugo, and good morning, everyone. As Hugo said at the beginning of the presentation, there is going to be a chance for questions and answers at the end of the presentation, so you should please use the facility under Teams for questions. You can type your questions there and we'll do our best to answer them at the end of the presentation. But what we thought we'd do now is deal with three questions that have been the three most frequently asked questions that pensioners have put to us. The first is, will you be able to get the same or higher amount of pension if you uplift your pension capital and buy a pension on the market? So I think the first point, and this is one of the reasons why we urge anybody considering such a decision to uplift, to speak with a financial advisor, because how much pension you can buy on the market will depend on your personal circumstances, in particular your age, whether or not you have a spouse or a spouse's pension. And that will, of course, differ for each person individually. But we think in general that it's unlikely that you will be able to buy a pension on the market that equals the pension you currently receive from the Rhodes University Pension Fund. And there are a number of reasons for this. The first is that you'll be buying it from a profit-making institution, such as Old Mutual, Sanlam, whereas the pension fund does not make profit. And not only will the institution have a profit margin built into what they offer you, but they will tend to be more conservative in their assumptions about things like life expectancy, because they want to ensure that they make a profit. And so they'll be more conservative than the pension fund's actuary. In addition, the fund has put aside a reserve to cover all the administrative costs of paying your pension, whereas the institution you buy a pension from would build those costs again into the pension you're offered. And then just one last point when you're thinking about such a decision is to remember that the fund is currently 100% funded. In fact, there's a slight investment surplus at the moment. So you're making these decisions against the background of a fund that is 100% funded. The second question. The second question is, will your spouse continue to receive a pension? Now, the rules of the fund are that your spouse gets a pension provided that you were married to that spouse at the date of your retirement. And this won't change. If you continue to remain a member of the pension fund, then your spouse will be entitled to exactly the same pension that she or he is currently entitled to. However, if you do take the decision to uplift your pension capital and buy a pension in the market, then it's very important when you speak to your financial advisor that you ensure that what you've been quoted on provides for a similar spouse's pension. Either if you're buying a life annuity, or you're going to be if you're going to be working off the base of a living annuity, how much you draw down from that living annuity, you must ensure that the same arrangement continues for your spouse as exists currently in the pension fund. Next slide, please. Then the last one is, are the trustees looking to close the fund? The trustees did consider this option, but decided closing the fund is not in the best interests of the members. So other decisions were taken, such as to close the fund to new entrants, and then for active members to continue only until 1st of April 2022, and then to shift future contributions to the Provident Fund. Now, it's possible that at some point in the future, if investment returns don't match what the actuary currently assumes them to be in saying that the fund is fully funded, that it's possible that there would be a deficit in the future. And Dr. Mabazela has already dealt with this, but the first port of call then would be for the trustees to make decisions to try and restore the fund into a sound financial position. And that would include things such as not providing for an annual pension increase or even reducing the targeted pension increase policy of the fund, which is currently 60% of CPI. If after doing all of those, the fund still remained in deficit, the trustees would then approach the university for assistance. And as Dr. Mabazela said, the university's reaction then would depend on the prevailing financial circumstances in which the university finds itself at that point. If after all that, the decision still had to be taken to close the fund, then the trustees would look with expert advisors as to what would be the most suitable vehicle for pensioners in the future. So those are the most frequently asked questions. We're going to hopefully address some more of your questions in the video that follows. The video is for both active members and for pensioners. And you may find that the volume is a bit low when it starts. If that's the case, if you could just please turn up the volume on your devices. Derek, you're muted, and I think that's why there's no sound.
Coming through?
No, Derek, perhaps just move to the previous slide and then back into the video, please.
Let's see what I'm not going to do. Right, let me just stop the presenting.
Folks, while we're getting our video up and running again, this is a very important part. As you can see, we are now covering some of the technical issues. And of course, the goal of the presentation and, in fact, the whole project team working is to make as much as possible information available to you, to be fully informed. And as such, we now are going to play the video, which will provide more information. Over to Derek.
Coming through?
Hi, Sally and Sia. So glad you could make it. I'm a consultant from Alexander Forbes, the administrator of your pension fund.
Hi, Amanda. Sorry for being late. I was reading the letter sent to us by the Rhodes University Pension Fund. I'm an active member and not sure what the restructuring of the pension fund means.
That's what I'm here for, Sally. Let me explain it to you.
Amanda, I'm afraid I don't understand the restructuring either. I've been telling Sally that this has come at a time when we are already dealing with so many challenges, especially COVID-19. As a pensioner, it makes me nervous.
Okay, let's start at the beginning. From the 1st of April 2022, all active members will join the Rhodes University Provident Fund. Your contributions, along with the university's contributions, will continue being allocated to the Rhodes University Pension Fund defined benefit structure until the 31st of March 2022. With effect from the 1st of April 2022, your contributions, along with the university's, will be allocated to the Rhodes University Provident Fund defined contribution structure. The level of contributions that will be paid to the Rhodes University Provident Fund will be the same as what was being paid to the Rhodes University Pension Fund. Please note that even if you have elected to transfer your accumulated pension fund value as at the 1st of April 2022 to the Rhodes University Provident Fund, your value will remain invested in the Rhodes University Pension Fund and will continue to accumulate with investment returns until such time as the Financial Sector Conduct Authority approves the transfer, which will be sometime after the 1st of April 2022. Sally, as an active member, you need to decide whether you want to leave your total savings up to the 31st of March 2022 in the defined benefit Rhodes University Pension Fund, or transfer your total savings up to the 31st of March 2022 to the defined contribution Rhodes University Provident Fund. Sia, as a pensioner, you need to decide whether you want to leave your pension in the defined benefit Rhodes Pension Fund without any changes, or buy a different pension or annuity using the current value of your savings in the defined benefit Rhodes Pension Fund. Sally, from the 1st of April 2022, all your contributions to retirement will be paid to the defined contribution Rhodes University Provident Fund. You'll also be insured for death and monthly disability income benefits under the Rhodes University Provident Fund. This means that if you resign, get retrenched or dismissed, or pass away, either you or your beneficiaries will benefit from either the Provident Fund or the Provident and Pension Fund, depending on your choice.
May I ask, why is Rhodes restructuring the pension fund?
Well, firstly, to consolidate the staff retirement fund arrangements, and secondly, to support the future financial sustainability of Rhodes University. A defined benefit structure promises to pay you a certain amount calculated using assumptions. The fund can't accurately calculate these future amounts because we don't know what tomorrow will bring, and that presents the university with a financial risk. The restructuring will progressively reduce the risk over a period of time unless the fund goes into a deficit and the university is unable to fund the deficit at that time, in which case the trustees will be required to exercise the options available to them in terms of the relevant legislation and the rules of the fund.
Thanks for such a thorough explanation. That said, is this in my best interest?
Everybody's personal financial circumstances are different, but the changes certainly can have some advantages of a higher pension at retirement than you would have received from a defined benefit retirement fund due to better investment performance. If you change employment, you'll be entitled to take the full benefit. You also have a wider choice of investments to choose from.
Amanda, are our funds in the Rhodes University Pension Fund still safe?
The Council ruled in 2020 that the university could not afford to make further additional contributions to the pension fund. The university needed a long-term solution to address possible future funding problems of the pension fund. The university must meet its commitments to all its stakeholders equally. In an environment of fiscal austerity, it cannot continue to favour a defined pension fund that has fallen out of favour with local and global trends. In the case of a deficit in the defined benefit fund, the university may not be in a financial position to bail the fund out, in which case the trustees will be required to exercise the options available to them in terms of the relevant legislation and the rules of the fund.
When can we expect more information and dates for our presentations and consultations?
You'll be pleased to know that the presentations for active members will take place in October 2021 and for pensioners in November 2021. We'll also thereafter kickstart the individual financial planner consultations with members and pensioners to explain the different investment options available. More information on the restructuring is also available on the Rhodes website. Let's look at the timelines. Active members need to check your statement in October. You'll get a statement with the projected value of your retirement savings as of the 1st of October 2021. This will guide you as to approximately how much will be credited to the Provident Fund if you choose to convert and transfer this benefit to the defined contribution Rhodes University Provident Fund. Attend a presentation. The Funds Consultant and the Human Resources Department will host presentations in October 2021. Please attend these presentations to understand how the restructuring will affect you. Submit your choice by emailing your signed option form to your HR division. Whatever your choice about your existing funds, all active members will join the Defined Contribution Fund on the 1st of April 2022. Pensioners need to talk with a financial planner. A financial planner will contact you to discuss your current pension position and future provision and planning. Complete the option form and submit this to consult with Alexander Forbes at aforbes.com should you want to explore the option of purchasing a pension outside of the fund. This option form will enable the actuary to calculate the value of your actuarial reserve and will enable your financial planner to obtain pension quotations. Make your decision by the 30th of June 2022.
If I choose to transfer, how long will the transfer of the funds take?
Once the election process is completed, the transfer of members' fund values could take 6 to 8 months because this process is governed by Section 14 of the Pension Funds Act. A Section 14 transfer has complicated reporting requirements, which must be finalized before the Financial Sector Conduct Authority will approve the transfer of money to the Defined Contribution Rhodes University Provident Fund.
Amanda, thank you for sharing this important information with us. I now feel comfortable that Rhodes University and the trustees of the pension fund are ensuring our money is safeguarded. I feel much better after talking to you.
It's a new dawn for Rhodes University Pension Fund active members and pensioners.
Well, everyone, good to have the show on the road today. As you can see, the emphasis has been very much on the changes in the pension fund as they happen, and then, of course, with a focus on how we as pensioners are affected by this. We're slowly moving into the area of allowing you to give your questions. Can we also point out that if perhaps you do not have a question ready at this time, but would like to have one-on-one consultations with, for example, Alexander Forbes, which we do recommend. If you are in doubt on something, you are most welcome to speak to Derek and Nikki at Alexander Forbes, who would then be able to run a personal consultation with you. But for now, we've reached the point where we would like to have your questions and also look at the contact information up on the screen at the moment. Okay, at this stage then, we start with the question and answer session. This will be facilitated by Gavin and myself. So all ready for you. You are most welcome.
Thanks, Hugo. Professor Foster sent us 2 questions ahead of time, and I see he's put very similar one up again. I will deal with the ones that he actually emailed with us first, and I think that will cover the question that he's put on the Q&A. And the first one was, he said, in 1994, I and other pensioners signed an agreement with the university that as part of the defined benefits scheme, all financial risk would be taken on by the university. The university now intends to not honor this agreement. Well, I think I partly answered this, and so did Dr. Mabazela. The university has not said it will not honor this agreement. What it has said is that if the pension fund should find itself in a deficit in the future, then it would require first that the trustees take whatever actions are available to them to restore the fund to soundness, and that would include things like not giving annual pension increases and possibly also revising the targeted increases of the fund below the current 60% of CPI. At that point, the trustees would approach the university for assistance, and what the university has warned that its ability to provide that assistance will depend on its financial circumstances at the time. So we don't know what those will be, but the university has not said that under no circumstances will it provide assistance, but it will depend on its ability to do so. Then the second one is a very technical issue, and Professor Foss, you're welcome to take it up with Alexander Forbes in a one-on-one if you like, but it's about the discount rate. And you've said the discount rate used to indicate the solvency of the Rhodes Pension Fund has been raised from 10.2% to 11.9%. This is based, as I understand, on a current positive market. I have a concern that this does not reflect a longer term rate, and thus does not reflect the real solvency of the fund. And I think I saw in your question, you said it's not based on a market rate. Well, it is actually based on a market rate. It is based on the long-term government bond rate. It's not something that the actuary just decides upon. There are tables produced from the government bond rate, which actuaries across South Africa use as their discount rate. And the reason that rate rose is because the interest rate on government bonds increased last year. The reason interest rates rose is because of the sharp increase in government debt in South Africa as a result of COVID and the downgrading of our debt to even further into junk bond status. And so interest rates on government bonds increased. So it wasn't actually a positive market. It was a negative market for bonds. It was a positive market for shares, equities in South Africa, but a negative market for bonds. So that discount rate each year changes, but it changes depending on what has happened to the government bond rate during the year. And I think that actually the discount rate will have come down now because government bond interest rates are better than they were last year. There's a question as to how many pensioners are in the scheme at present, and the answer is 270. Then from Glenn Armstrong, I understand that I will not be given an actuarial value unless I register an interest, which is not binding. That's a question, and the answer is correct. I ask because I've been told that making a decision without a value can be likened to buying an unknown object by handing over a blank check to pay for it. And I mean, your observation is correct. And so we certainly do tell any pensioner that is considering uplifting their value must ask to receive that from the actuary. And the reason everybody's not just getting it automatically is that the actuary has to work it out for every individual pensioner. And so if you are just considering uplifting it, it's not binding, but you want to go and speak to a financial advisor to see what you could buy in the market based on your value, you must indicate in the forms provided that this is what you want. The actuary will work out your individual value, and then you can go and see what that gets in the market. But asking for that individual value in no ways obligates you to then take the decision to leave. You can find out what's available and you can say, I want to leave, or you can find out what's available and say, I wish to remain within the fund. Then Christopher McQuaid, based on the last point about what would happen if a decision was taken to to close the fund, said what is a suitable vehicle for pensioners. And Derek, are you able to assist with what that might look like?
Certainly, Gavin. Obviously, the critical thing is income. So, you know, to match income, existing pension income, and obviously the design and suitability of the vehicle, chosen vehicle, would depend on the pensioner's individual circumstances. So it would be things like the pensioner's state of health at that particular point, the spouse's state of health, the need to leave a legacy, mortality risks, etc. So it really depends on the pensioner's individual circumstances at that point in time. So the type of annuity would obviously have to be an approved, accredited annuity and could fall in the category of a life annuity, which would be similar to what is provided by the Rhodes University Pension Fund, or a living annuity, where the pensioner then takes control of the underlying capital and then takes investment decisions with that capital and elects an appropriate drawdown rate between 2.5% and 17.5%. So those essentially are the two options available, or alternatively a combination of the two. But the ultimate setup is, and the decision is quite complex, and one needs to do a thorough needs analysis and a financial planning exercise along with an accredited financial advisor. Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, Derek. The next question is from Professor Foss again, and it starts off with the discount rate, which I hope I've addressed. But then he says, if the fund is 100% funded, why is the university worried about it? Well, I think that the university is worried about it, as Dr. Mabazela said, like any other employer. Rhodes was, in fact, one of only two academic institutions in South Africa that still provided a defined benefit fund. And the reason is that changes in accounting practices required employers to include any potential liability from the fund in their financial statements. And so certainly in the private sector, you will not find a company that provides such a fund anymore. And the university has, in recent years, had to inject money into the fund. And so that certainly heightened concern. And one of the concerns was the university's own financial position, but also the lack of equity between members of the fund and members of the defined, of the Provident Fund, the defined contribution fund. Then Professor Foss says it would be possible for Gavin and Hugo to indicate what route they will follow. Well, Hugo's not actually a member of the fund. He is an employer representative. He's a member of the Provident Fund. And it wouldn't be appropriate for us to indicate, because it really depends on individual circumstances. And personally, I've only been a member of this fund for a very small part of my working career, because I only joined Rhodes when I turned 50. Gordon Barker says, will the pensions of surviving spouses remain 50% for those who remain members of the fund? Will the figure of 50% for surviving spouses be used to calculate the actuarial value that then will be transferred to another provider for those who choose to leave the fund? I think the answer to both of those is yes, but Derek, if you could just confirm that.
Yes, indeed, Gavin, you're quite correct. So just bear in mind the 50%, it's 50% of the pre-commuted pension. So where a pensioner, for argument's sake, commuted 1/3 of his pension at the time of retirement for cash, then it would be 75% of the post-commuted pension. But in terms of the rules of the fund, it's 50% of the pre-commuted pension adjusted with pension increases that have been granted since the date of retirement. So the short answer is yes, the actual reserve value that is calculated by the actuary will include the provision for the spouse's pension. Thank you, Gavin.
And the next question says, what percentage of members withdrawing will affect the viability of the fund? Well, members withdrawing doesn't impact on the viability of the fund at all, because each member would simply be taking their actuarial reserve. The remaining members would continue to have exactly their actuarial reserve. And in fact, the remaining members would benefit from the small surplus that the fund currently has, because that would remain with members rather than the exiting members. The only problem of withdrawals is the admin costs get shared by a smaller and smaller number of members, and that is why the trustees took the decision to allocate a capital amount to cover the admin costs of the fund in the future, so that it will not impact on the remaining members. Anything to add to that, Derek?
Yeah. Thank you, Gavin. Yeah, so just to clarify, I know you've referred to it as a surplus. It's not actually a surplus, it's a solvency reserve. Yes. So the fund does have a small solvency reserve. It's not fully funded, but it is partially funded. And that solvency reserve acts as a cushion to protect the fund against any future adverse experience, such as poor mortality risks, investment risks, etc. So there is that cushion there. The solvency reserve belongs to the fund, and as I said, it's there to protect the fund as a whole. So where members or pensioners uplift voluntarily, they're not entitled to a share of that solvency reserve while the fund is a going concern. And it just means that that solvency reserve is there to protect the remaining members in the fund. So this question has been raised before. So if half the pensioners decided to voluntarily leave, it doesn't alter the size of that solvency reserve. It just means an existing solvency reserve for fewer pensioners. So as a percentage of the remaining liabilities, the solvency reserve would be higher. So, that should allay the fear of pensioners that, where there is, I think there was one question that came through, a run on the bank, or if 90% of the pensioners left and 10% were left behind, what are the risks? Well, there is an expense reserve as well. The expense reserve would also remain intact along with the solvency reserve. So it just means that those two reserves are there to service the remaining few on the fund. Thank you, Gavin.
Thanks, Derek, and thanks for reminding me. I couldn't think of the term solvency reserve. There's a question from Professor Terry on what are the implications and proposals for medical aid contributions. Now, there's no implications in terms of actual payments. I think there was an admin implication. Is Sue Robson on the call? I'm not sure. We may. Pat, we'll post that answer in terms of it's purely an admin issue, but nothing in terms of contributions that have to be paid. I think that is the last question, Hugo, or am I not? That's all I'm seeing in the chat.
Yes, Gavin, also from my side, I don't see any more. This has been quite a productive session, and we do appreciate yourself and Derek providing the technical answers to that. What we have found over this time, over which the project team has been working, was some uncertainty on the part of members going forward. And I think it may be appropriate at this stage to assure all of you that if you stay in the Rhodes University Pension Fund, your pension will be 100% safe. Nothing is happening here to put your pension at risk. There is the opportunity now for you to take an alternative route and go to a private provider, often leading to a question, should I stay or should I uplift? Well, of course, the answer to that is, number one, to consult a financial advisor. Speak to one of the insurance companies or a private firm who would be in a position to to do that for you. And from that discussion, you'll be able to compare the pension that you would receive, say, from an Old Mutual or a Sanlam as compared to the Rhodes Pension Fund. And I think that would inform your decision to a great deal. Use that as the basis for your choice, and not maybe the uncertainty as to whether the Rhodes Pension Fund is safe or not. The fact that it's being restructured does not mean that there is a problem or that my pension is going to be at risk. It does give you a new opportunity now, should you so wish. And as, of course, feel most welcome to send in your questions. And in particular, should you feel that you would like a one-on-one consultation with Nikki or Derek, that's also provided. The main effort here for the team is to make as much as possible information available to you in an interactive way, so that people could act in their own best interest. Yes, I see no more, Gavin.
Sorry, Hugo, there's just Nikki has just replied to Professor Terry's question. So I knew there was an admin thing issue. So if members leave the fund, then they will have to make their own arrangements for the deduction of medical aid premiums or any other deductions that are currently being taken by Rhodes off your monthly pension. And then another one, it said this may be a tricky question, but if one is unlikely to get an equivalent pension by transferring, what would be the advantages? Well, this is where it is individual circumstances, and why members, before making such a decision, must please speak to a financial advisor. But remember, the fund already allowed pensioners upon retirement to uplift their funds and to go their own way, and that was done by many people in the past. And of course, the university also offered both the defined benefit and the defined contribution provident fund, and many of our colleagues chose to go to the provident fund because they believed that better suited their individual needs. So again, I think it's, there's no one size fits all, but nobody's obliged to leave. But if after speaking to a financial advisor, you believe that in your new circumstances, it might be better to uplift and to buy a pension in the marketplace, that is what you've been given the opportunity to do. And then I think that's it, Hugo.
Yes, all from my side. I don't see anything more. If we don't have more questions coming up, folks, I believe that we've come to the end of the town hall, and as indicated before, this process is a very interactive one. The town hall is but one mechanism to provide you with information. There is a website. There is the possibility for you to interact individually with the project team and with Alexander Forbes in order to be totally confident about the way forward. And can we reiterate, your pension within the Rhodes University Pension Fund as an institution is perfectly safe. It is just the case that you have an opportunity, should you so wish, to uplift, but that is something that would be informed from discussions with financial advisors, and through a comparison of the quotes given to you by such private institutions and your pension within the Rhodes system. But please continue to liaise with us, ask the questions, and as the process unfolds, you will be getting ongoing information. So as we now approach the end of the seminar, the webinar, just a warm word of thanks to all our presenters, particularly Dr. Sizwe Mabizela for the first presentation, Derek and Gavin for doing their part. Finally, the show has been on the road, and we do hope that all pensioners found this useful, and that you did manage to get the information that you were hoping for. And we go from there. So without further ado, from my side, if there's any of our presenters would like to add something, please do. But from my side, thank you very much again. As we now find ourselves mid-December, it's appropriate, I believe, for us to wish you a joyous festive season. Please enjoy the break, and we pick it up again in the new year. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Derek and Nikki, would you be ending for us?
Thank you so much, Hugo. Nothing further from my side.
All right, team, we seem to be all done. So I'm going to hang up from my side. Thank you very much.